Have you ever wondered why some people are respected the moment they enter a room, while others are constantly ignored, underestimated, or taken for granted? The answer is not in what they say, it is hidden in what they consistently do. There is a quiet misunderstanding that follows many people throughout their lives. They believe that if they explain themselves clearly enough, defend their intentions passionately enough, or tell others how valuable they are often enough, they will eventually receive the respect and appreciation they deserve. Yet life repeatedly teaches a different lesson. People rarely form lasting opinions about us based on what we say about ourselves. Instead, they watch what we do. They observe how we behave when nobody is applauding, how we react when things become difficult, how we treat those who cannot offer us anything in return, and how consistently our actions match our words. In many ways, every choice we make becomes a silent introduction to our character. Long before people believe our promises, they study our behavior. Long before they trust our intentions, they evaluate our consistency. This is why actions carry a weight that words can never fully achieve. Words can be spoken in a moment, but actions require commitment, discipline, and authenticity. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are your respect for them was not created by a speech they delivered about their virtues, it was built gradually through observation. Perhaps they remained honest when dishonesty would have been easier. Perhaps they honored commitments even when circumstances became inconvenient. Perhaps they showed kindness when nobody was watching or demonstrated courage during moments when fear seemed justified. What made these individuals memorable was not the image they attempted to project, but the evidence they provided through their daily behavior. Human beings instinctively trust patterns more than promises. One impressive statement may capture attention, but repeated actions create belief. This is why a person who quietly fulfills responsibilities often earns more respect than someone who constantly speaks about ambition but rarely follows through. The difference lies in credibility. Actions transform intentions into reality, and reality is far more convincing than explanation. Many people unknowingly weaken their own value by relying too heavily on verbal declarations. They announce their goals before taking the first step. They describe their loyalty before demonstrating it. They speak about discipline before developing it. They insist they deserve respect while behaving in ways that communicate uncertainty about their own worth. The problem is not that their words are incorrect. The problem is that words without supporting behavior create doubt. Every time actions contradict statements, trust begins to erode. Eventually, people stop listening to what is being said and focus entirely on what is being done. This shift happens naturally because behavior is difficult to fake over long periods of time. A person may maintain an image for a day, a week, or even a month, but consistency reveals the truth. Character emerges through repetition. Habits expose values. Daily choices reveal priorities. This principle becomes especially important when it comes to self-worth. Many individuals spend years asking others to recognize qualities that they themselves are not consistently expressing through action. They want to be valued but continually tolerate disrespect. They want to be trusted but frequently abandon commitments to themselves. They want to be seen as confident while constantly seeking approval for every decision they make. In these situations, the issue is not a lack of potential. The issue is that behavior is sending a message that conflicts with the identity they wish to project. The world responds to the signals we repeatedly communicate. When you honor your boundaries, follow through on your commitments, respect your time, and act according to your principles, people receive a clear message about your standards. They begin to understand what you will accept, what you will not tolerate, and how seriously you take your own values. The most powerful individuals are often not the ones who speak the most about their worth. They are the ones whose behavior makes their worth impossible to ignore. Their discipline speaks before they do. Their consistency speaks before they do. Their integrity speaks before they do. Every decision becomes evidence of who they are. every action becomes a reflection of the standards they choose to live by. Instead of trying to persuade the world, they focus on aligning their behavior with their values, understanding that respect earned through consistent action is stronger and more lasting than admiration gained through impressive words. One of the most important lessons a person can learn is that respect does not begin with how others treat you. It begins with how you treat yourself. Many people spend years feeling frustrated because they are constantly overlooked, taken for granted, or placed in situations that drain their energy and peace of mind. They wonder why certain relationships leave them exhausted, or why some individuals repeatedly cross lines that should never have been crossed. Often, the answer is not hidden in the behavior of others alone. It is also found in the absence of clear boundaries. Boundaries are not punishments, barriers, or signs of selfishness. They are expressions of self-respect. They communicate what matters to you, what you value, and what you are willing to accept in your life. Without them, even the kindest and most generous person can find themselves trapped in a cycle of resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Many people grow up believing that being a good person means always being available, always saying yes, and always putting the needs of others ahead of their own. While generosity and compassion are admirable qualities, they become harmful when they are practiced without limits. A person who never sets boundaries often becomes vulnerable to being used, not because they lack value, but because they fail to protect it. When someone repeatedly sacrifices their own well-being to avoid disappointing others, they unintentionally teach people that their needs can be ignored. Over time, this creates unhealthy patterns. The individual becomes overwhelmed while those around them grow accustomed to receiving without considering the cost. What began as kindness slowly transforms into obligation, and what once felt meaningful starts to feel draining. This is why boundaries are not obstacles to healthy relationships, they are essential foundations for them. A boundary is simply a clear statement of what you will and will not allow in your life. It can take many forms. Sometimes it means protecting your time from constant interruptions. Sometimes it means refusing to engage in disrespectful conversations. Sometimes it means declining requests that exceed your emotional, physical, or mental capacity. At other times, it means stepping away from relationships that consistently diminish your sense of peace and self-worth. These choices are often difficult because they require courage. Many people fear that setting boundaries will make them appear selfish, cold, or uncaring. They worry about disappointing others or creating conflict. Yet the absence of boundaries rarely creates harmony. Instead, it often creates hidden resentment, silent frustration, and emotional fatigue. A person who constantly ignores their own needs eventually reaches a point where they have little left to give. One of the reasons boundaries are so powerful is that they reveal how much value you place on yourself. When you establish healthy limits, you send a message to both yourself and others that your time, energy, and emotional well-being matter. You acknowledge that your life deserves protection and that your peace is not something to be sacrificed carelessly. This does not mean becoming rigid or refusing to help others. It means understanding that true generosity comes from a place of strength rather than depletion. A person who respects their own limits is often more capable of offering meaningful support because they are not operating from exhaustion or resentment. Their kindness becomes intentional rather than compulsory. Their assistance becomes genuine rather than driven by guilt or fear. People often underestimate how much others learn from the boundaries we establish. Every interaction becomes a lesson. When you tolerate constant disrespect, people learn that disrespect has no consequences. When you repeatedly abandon your priorities to accommodate everyone else's demands, people learn that your time is available without consideration. When you remain silent in situations that violate your values, people assume those values are negotiable. Boundaries change this dynamic. They create clarity. They eliminate confusion. They help others understand the standards by which you live. Some individuals will respect those standards immediately. Others may resist because they benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past. Their discomfort does not mean your boundaries are wrong. In many cases, it simply reveals that the relationship was built on access rather than mutual respect. The ability to set boundaries is deeply connected to self-awareness. It requires knowing what matters to you, recognizing your limits, and accepting that you cannot be everything to everyone. It involves understanding that saying no to one thing often means saying yes to something more important. Every healthy boundary reflects a decision about what deserves your attention, your energy, and your commitment. Rather than seeking constant approval, you begin making choices that align with your values and priorities. Instead of measuring your worth by how much you can give away, you start recognizing the importance of preserving your well-being, protecting your peace, honoring your principles, and treating your own needs with the same care and consideration that you so willingly offer to others. One of the most liberating realizations a person can experience is understanding that not every decision requires an explanation, and not every action requires approval. Many people spend a large portion of their lives trying to justify themselves to others. They explain why they made a certain choice, why they changed direction, why they ended a relationship, why they declined an invitation, or why they decided to pursue a different path. Behind this constant need to explain is often a deeper desire to be understood, accepted, and validated. While there is nothing wrong with wanting understanding, problems arise when a person becomes dependent on it. The search for approval can quietly become a prison. Instead of making decisions based on values, goals, and personal truth, individuals begin shaping their lives around the expectations and opinions of those around them. They become more concerned with defending their choices than living them. The truth is that explanations do not guarantee understanding. No matter how clearly you communicate, some people will still misunderstand you. No matter how detailed your reasoning may be, some individuals will continue to judge your decisions through the lens of their own experiences, beliefs, and expectations. Human beings naturally interpret situations according to their personal perspectives. What seems obvious to one person may seem unreasonable to another. What feels necessary to you may appear unnecessary to someone else. Because of this, endless explanations often become exhausting exercises with little reward. The more you attempt to convince everyone, the more energy you invest in a battle that cannot be won. There will always be people who disagree, criticize, or fail to understand. The pursuit of universal approval is a destination that does not exist. Silence becomes powerful when it emerges from confidence rather than fear. Many people associate silence with weakness, passivity, or avoidance, but there is another kind of silence that carries tremendous strength. It is the silence of a person who knows who they are. It is the silence of someone who no longer feels compelled to defend every choice, justify every boundary, or explain every step they take. This kind of silence is not an absence of communication. It is a demonstration of self-assurance. It reflects an understanding that personal worth does not depend on constant validation from others. When a person reaches this level of confidence, they stop trying to persuade everyone to agree with them. They allow their actions, consistency, and character to speak on their behalf. One of the reasons people over-explain themselves is fear. They fear being misunderstood. They fear disappointing others. They fear criticism, rejection, or conflict. As a result, they provide lengthy explanations in the hope that everyone will see things from their perspective. Yet this habit often creates the opposite effect. Excessive explanations can unintentionally signal uncertainty. When people constantly defend their choices, they may appear as though they are seeking permission rather than exercising personal judgment. Confidence does not require endless justification. A person who trusts their own decisions understands that disagreement is a natural part of life. They recognize that not everyone will approve, and they accept this reality without allowing it to control their behavior. There are moments in life when silence protects dignity more effectively than words ever could. Consider situations involving criticism, gossip, or unfair judgment. The immediate impulse is often to respond, defend, and prove others wrong. Yet not every accusation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Sometimes the desire to defend yourself gives unnecessary power to opinions that should carry little importance. There is wisdom in recognizing which conversations deserve your energy and which do not. Silence can prevent emotional reactions that later become regrets. It can preserve peace in situations where arguments would only create more conflict. It can demonstrate emotional maturity by showing that your identity is not dependent on winning every debate or correcting every misconception. Silence also creates space for observation and reflection. People who feel compelled to explain everything often spend more time speaking than listening. As a result, they may miss important insights about the people and situations around them. Quiet confidence allows you to observe without reacting immediately. It allows you to understand motives, recognize patterns, and evaluate circumstances with greater clarity. In many cases, silence reveals more than words ever could. People often expose their intentions, values, and character when given the opportunity to speak freely. The person who listens carefully gains knowledge that the person constantly explaining themselves may never acquire. As individuals grow emotionally and personally, they begin to understand that their responsibility is not to manage everyone else's perception of them. Their responsibility is to live according to their principles, act with integrity, and remain faithful to their values. Some people will understand, some will not. Some will support their decisions. Others will criticize them. These outcomes become less significant when self-worth is rooted in personal conviction rather than external approval. The need to constantly explain fades because confidence grows stronger. Decisions become clearer. Boundaries become firmer. Actions become more intentional. Silence transforms from something uncomfortable into something powerful, reflecting an inner certainty that no longer depends on being understood by every person who happens to be watching. In a world that often celebrates dramatic achievements, powerful speeches, and impressive first impressions, one quality quietly stands above the rest: consistency. While talent may attract attention and charisma may create interest, consistency is what earns trust. It is one of the most valuable qualities a person can possess because it transforms potential into reliability and intentions into credibility. Many people are capable of extraordinary effort for a short period of time. They can be motivated for a week, disciplined for a month, or committed when circumstances are favorable. The true test of character, however, is not found in isolated moments of excellence, but in the ability to maintain standards over time. Consistency is what separates temporary enthusiasm from genuine commitment. It is the repeated decision to show up, follow through, and remain aligned with your values regardless of changing circumstances. People often underestimate how closely trust is connected to predictability. Human beings naturally feel safer around individuals whose actions are dependable. When someone consistently keeps their word, fulfills responsibilities, and behaves according to clear principles, others develop confidence in that person's character. This confidence is not built overnight. It develops gradually through repeated experiences. Every promise kept becomes another brick in the foundation of trust. Every commitment honored strengthens the belief that this person can be relied upon. Trust grows when words and actions consistently match. On the other hand, even the most impressive promises lose value when they are not supported by consistent behavior. A person may speak eloquently about loyalty, discipline, honesty, or dedication, But if their actions fluctuate according to convenience, people eventually stop listening to the words and begin paying attention only to the behavior. One of the reasons consistency is so powerful is that it reveals authenticity. Anyone can behave well when they are being observed. Anyone can appear committed during moments of excitement or opportunity. Consistency becomes meaningful because it continues even when recognition disappears. It continues during ordinary days, difficult seasons, and moments when motivation is absent. This is where character becomes visible. Character is not what you do once. Character is what you do repeatedly. It is reflected in habits, routines, and daily choices. A person who consistently acts with integrity demonstrates that their values are not temporary preferences but deeply rooted principles. This reliability creates a sense of admiration because people recognize how rare it is to encounter someone whose behavior remains stable despite changing circumstances. Many individuals struggle with consistency because they rely too heavily on emotions. When they feel inspired, they work hard. When they feel confident, they take action. When they feel motivated, they pursue their goals. The challenge arises when those feelings disappear. Motivation is valuable, but it is unpredictable. Some days it arrives naturally, and other days it is nowhere to be found. Consistency requires something stronger than motivation. It requires discipline. Discipline is the ability to continue acting according to your values even when emotions are not cooperating. It is the willingness to honor commitments regardless of mood, convenience, or temporary discomfort. This is why disciplined individuals often achieve results that appear extraordinary to others. Their success is not usually the result of a single remarkable effort. It is the result of hundreds or thousands of ordinary actions repeated over time. Consistency also has a profound effect on self-respect. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you strengthen your confidence. You begin to trust your own word. This form of self-trust is incredibly important because it influences every area of life. When you repeatedly abandon goals, ignore commitments, or make promises you do not keep, you gradually weaken your belief in yourself. Doubt begins to replace confidence. On the other hand, when you consistently honor your commitments, even small ones, you build a reputation not only with others but also within your own mind. You develop a sense of reliability that becomes part of your identity. You no longer wonder whether you can depend on yourself because your actions have already provided the answer. Admiration often follows consistency because people are inspired by individuals who remain committed over long periods of time. They recognize the patience required to continue when progress is slow. They appreciate the discipline required to maintain standards when shortcuts are available. They respect the integrity required to remain true to principles when compromise would be easier. Consistency demonstrates strength in a way that dramatic moments cannot. It reveals endurance, responsibility, and dedication. It shows that success is not being built on temporary excitement, but on a stable foundation of daily effort. Whether in relationships, personal growth, professional pursuits, or character development, the individuals who earn the deepest trust and admiration are usually not those who shine brightest for a moment, but those who continue showing up with integrity, reliability, and purpose long after the excitement has faded and long after others have stopped paying attention. One of the most misunderstood truths about respect is that it cannot be forced, demanded, or chased. Many people spend years trying to earn the approval of others, believing that if they work harder, sacrifice more, please everyone, or constantly prove their value, they will eventually receive the respect they desire. Yet despite all their efforts, they often feel overlooked, unappreciated, or taken for granted. The reason is simple but profound. Genuine respect begins with self-worth. The way you see yourself influences the way you present yourself to the world, and the way you present yourself influences how others respond to you. People may not always consciously recognize it, but they are constantly responding to the signals you send through your behavior, your boundaries, your confidence, and your treatment of yourself. Self-worth is not something hidden deep within that remains invisible to others. It reveals itself through countless daily actions, and those actions quietly teach people how to treat you. Many individuals confuse self-worth with arrogance, but the two are completely different. Arrogance seeks superiority. It depends on comparison and often requires putting others down in order to feel elevated. Self-worth, on the other hand, is calm and secure. It does not need to dominate conversations, seek attention, or prove importance. A person with healthy self-worth understands their value without needing constant confirmation from the outside world. They do not walk through life believing they are better than others. They simply understand that they are worthy of respect, consideration, and dignity. This quiet confidence creates a powerful presence because it is rooted in certainty rather than insecurity. People are naturally drawn to those who possess this kind of inner stability because it reflects emotional strength and authenticity. One of the clearest signs of self-worth is the ability to stop seeking validation from everyone around you. Validation can be comforting, and there is nothing wrong with appreciating encouragement or recognition. Problems arise when approval becomes a necessity rather than a bonus. A person who depends entirely on external validation becomes vulnerable to manipulation, disappointment, and self-doubt. Their confidence rises and falls according to the opinions of others. They become hesitant to make decisions without reassurance and fearful of criticism because their sense of value depends on acceptance. In contrast, someone with strong self-worth understands that not everyone will approve of their choices, and they are at peace with that reality. They make decisions based on principles, goals, and personal conviction rather than constantly adjusting themselves to satisfy every expectation placed upon them. Self-worth is also reflected in the standards a person establishes for their life. Individuals who recognize their value do not tolerate treatment that consistently undermines their dignity. They understand the importance of healthy boundaries and are willing to protect their peace even when doing so is uncomfortable. They do not remain in situations that repeatedly diminish their confidence or compromise their well-being simply to avoid conflict or gain approval. This does not mean they become harsh, inflexible, or unwilling to compromise. It means they understand the difference between kindness and self-abandonment. They know that respecting others should never require disrespecting themselves. Because of this, they create relationships built on mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice. Another reason self-worth attracts respect is that it influences behavior in subtle but powerful ways. A person who values themselves tends to speak with greater confidence, make decisions with greater clarity, and approach challenges with greater resilience. They are less likely to tolerate manipulation, less likely to settle for less than they deserve, and less likely to compromise their values for temporary acceptance. These qualities communicate strength, not aggressive strength or dominating strength, but the kind of strength that comes from knowing who you are and remaining true to that understanding. Others often respond positively to this energy because it creates a sense of trust and stability. People feel more confident in those who are confident in themselves. Perhaps the most important aspect of self-worth is that it changes the relationship you have with yourself. Instead of constantly questioning your value, you begin to recognize it. Instead of measuring your worth through achievements, popularity, or approval, you develop a deeper understanding that your value exists independently of external circumstances. This shift affects every area of life. You become more selective about where you invest your time and energy. You become less afraid of rejection because rejection no longer determines your identity. You become more willing to pursue meaningful goals because failure no longer threatens your sense of worth. As your relationship with yourself becomes stronger, the way others perceive you often changes as well. Respect begins to appear more naturally because the signals you send through your actions, choices, and presence communicate a powerful message. You understand your value, you honor your dignity, and you carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs the world to decide what they are worth. One of the most influential lessons in human relationships is a lesson that many people overlook for years. The way you treat yourself becomes an instruction manual for how others will treat you. Every day, through your choices, your boundaries, your standards, and your responses, you communicate what you believe you deserve. This communication often happens without words. It is reflected in what you tolerate, what you prioritize, what you ignore, and what you protect. Many individuals focus their attention on changing the behavior of others, hoping to receive more respect, appreciation, or consideration. While it is natural to desire these things, lasting change often begins somewhere else. It begins with examining the relationship you have with yourself. Before people learn how to value you, they often observe how much value you place on yourself. Before they understand your standards, they watch the standards you maintain in your own life. Many people unknowingly send conflicting messages. They desire respect, but constantly dismiss their own needs. They want others to honor their time while repeatedly treating their own time as unimportant. They hope for healthy relationships while allowing unhealthy patterns to continue without challenge. They seek appreciation while minimizing their own achievements and contributions. These contradictions create confusion not only internally but externally as well. Human beings learn through observation. When people consistently see someone neglecting their own well-being, tolerating poor treatment, or sacrificing their values for approval, they begin to assume that these behaviors are acceptable. The issue is not always that others intend to take advantage. Often, they simply respond to the standards that have been presented to them. This is why self-treatment matters so deeply. It establishes expectations long before conversations about respect ever take place. The way you speak to yourself is one of the most powerful examples of self-treatment. Many individuals are far harsher with themselves than they would ever be with another person. They criticize every mistake, magnify every failure, and constantly focus on what they lack rather than what they have achieved. Over time, this internal dialogue shapes confidence, behavior, and decision-making. A person who continuously undermines themselves begins to act from a place of insecurity rather than self-assurance. They may hesitate to pursue opportunities, struggle to establish boundaries, or seek validation from others because they have not learned to provide encouragement to themselves. In contrast, someone who treats themselves with respect develops a stronger foundation of confidence. They acknowledge mistakes without defining themselves by them. They recognize weaknesses without ignoring strengths. They approach growth with patience rather than constant self-condemnation. This balanced relationship with themselves influences how they interact with the world and how the world responds in return. Self-treatment is also reflected in the priorities a person chooses. Consider how often people place everyone else's needs above their own. They postpone rest, neglect personal goals, ignore emotional well-being, and continually sacrifice what matters to them in order to satisfy the expectations of others. While generosity can be admirable, constant self-neglect sends a dangerous message. It suggests that your needs are less important than everyone else's. Over time, people may begin to accept this message because it has been reinforced repeatedly through your behavior. Respecting yourself means recognizing that your well-being deserves attention. It means understanding that caring for yourself is not selfish but necessary. When you value your physical health, emotional balance, personal growth, and peace of mind, you demonstrate that these areas of your life are important. Others often respond by treating them as important as well. Boundaries play a central role in teaching others how to treat you. Every boundary communicates a standard. It clarifies what behavior is acceptable and what behavior is not. Without boundaries, people are left to determine those standards for themselves, and their assumptions may not align with your values or needs. A person who consistently allows disrespect without consequence may unintentionally encourage more disrespect. A person who repeatedly sacrifices their time for others while neglecting their own priorities may unintentionally teach people that their time is endlessly available. Boundaries create clarity. They establish expectations and reinforce self respect. They communicate that kindness does not require self abandonment and that consideration for others should coexist with consideration for yourself. Perhaps the most significant aspect of self treatment is the example it sets for every relationship in your life. Whether in friendships, family connections, professional environments, or personal partnerships, people observe how you carry yourself. They notice whether you honor your commitments to yourself, they notice whether you protect your peace, respect your values, and maintain your standards. They observe whether you believe your own needs matter. These observations influence the way they interact with you. The relationship you build with yourself becomes the foundation upon which other relationships are formed. When that foundation is built on self respect, self awareness, and healthy standards, it creates an environment where mutual respect is far more likely to flourish because your actions consistently communicate that your time has value, your voice deserves consideration, your well being matters, and your life is worthy of the same care, dignity, and respect that you willingly extend to everyone around you.